A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Well, we're going to talk now about a return to church and religion amongst younger people, millennials in particular. This is counter to the census data, which show chunky declines in adherence to a stated religion. But something is happening, and it's worth talking about. Stephen McAlpine is an award-winning Christian author, pastor, and national commentator for City Bible Forum. He's going to join us today to talk about this trend, which is bucking the trends of young people, especially millennials, coming back to church. Stephen, welcome.
With you.
Just drop the gold on us again. Tell us what is going on with young people in church.
Well, it seems that contrary to the expectations that Christianity would die a slow natural death as the baby boomers died off, that younger people are coming back, and they're coming back as people who've had no experience of church at all. Now, they're not just coming to Christianity. There's a religious sweep, but I think it's because they're looking for something bigger with more meaning and purpose than they've been sold over the last 30 years. They're not going to own a house. They're not going to be able to afford the things that their parents did, and they're saying, is that what it's all about? I think that's part of the issue.
Yeah, I think you're right. You just reminded me, I went and watched a friend of mine's friend get baptised at church on Sunday, and she is in her 30s, I think, never been to church, no God experience, no church experience. Went to church 6 weeks ago, resonated with the message, responded, got a Bible, and was water baptised on Sunday. So, yeah, I hope and pray this is a continuing trend across Australia. But what do you think the church can do in this context, if this is what's happening? How can the church position itself?
Well, I think what it needs to do is say, we're going to be getting a bunch of people that have no framework. So we can't assume that somehow they've got a moral sort of, people were not Christian in a kind of Christian way 30 or 40 years ago. These people coming will be not Christian in a not Christian way, and then they become Christian and they go, tell me, disciple me, show me what community looks like, because out there it's hard, it's tough, it's lonely. And if we can't be people that just dial up our level of community and dial up our level of, let's do hospitality cross-generational, let's do forgiveness well, rather than just, you can go to another church because we keep fighting or something like that. I think there are things that we can tweak and we can look at to say, we want to be ready for when people say, are you any different to what the world is offering me? I really think that's our key issue at the moment. And the discipleship program will be thicker and deeper and richer to counter what I think is a cultural discipleship program going on the moment that's very invasive of people through social medias and things like that.
Yeah, interesting. So you're saying there's a real need for greater community, greater human relationships, and out of those human relationships, we bring discipleship as opposed to a program or a structure or some sort of system.
Yeah, I do. And I also think that it's deep difference that's going to shape people to Christianity. I think there was a view maybe a few years ago that if we can have, as Mark Sayers called, cultural relevance, we'll win people back. But it seems that gospel resilience, as he puts it, is more the way to go for Christians. But it's also as we show ourselves to be different, not just in the sexual ethic that we talk about a lot, but also what are our goals and plans in life? What are our great comforts in life? What's our vision of human flourishing? How do we look after people who are different to us? I think as we show ourselves deeply different, that somehow that's more compelling than saying, well, you can just stitch this Christianity onto your sort of vision of what humans are about. And I think that's going to be a big difference going forward too. The churches that do that well and decisively will find that people will come to them saying they are looking for something different.
Yeah, because if we're honest with ourselves in our social media saturated world, it doesn't satisfy people, does it, Stephen? Like people today, I mean, you drive past a bus stop or a ferry terminal or a train stop these days, and everyone is just looking at their phone, aren't they? They are immersed in social media. But do you think it just creates a bit of a longing deep down inside everyone for real human relationship?
Yeah, we're looking for something, and we mediate our relationships. The fact that I think younger people especially struggle to answer the phone, actually literally answer it and speak to someone face to face, shows that people are nervous to have unmediated relationships. And so when you get people coming to church new and they go, well, what's it all about? You go, well, it is actually about face-to-face relationship. We're going to have to model that well as well. But there is a loneliness framework in our culture. 1/3 of Australian households, or I think it's almost 1/3, are single dwelling. So you're going to have to think about how you do community and help people to do community who can live at arm's length from people and just involve people in their lives as they wish. And you're going to have to think, how are we going to reach people that they do deeper community together?
Yeah. So are you saying 30% of Australians live in a dwelling with just one person in it?
Yeah, it's getting up towards that percentage. And I look at my neighbours in Perth. I'm living in New Zealand at the moment, but my neighbours in Perth, 4 of the 5 houses near us are single dwelling.
Incredible.
And that's a suburb. That's not inner city. That's in a suburb.
Yeah. So wow. So that's the future space of Australia. 30% of the harvest field that the church is called to reach potentially could live in a home with just one person in it. So there's deep loneliness there, isn't there? There is a longing for human fellowship, isn't there?
There is, and there's also people don't do much cross-generational deep relationship outside of maybe extended family, but even then they struggle to do that. And what you're going to find is Christians can model to other people what it looks like to do extended family networks of relationships, for single, divorced, never married, widowed. Once you start to do that in a community, it starts to have a compelling reality to it. And I think the church can model that well to an increasingly lonely and isolated culture.
Yeah, and I think this is encouraging too for churches of all sizes, that we can all do this. It doesn't matter how big your church is or how small your church is. We can all do a social group with some food and just fellowship and just great interaction with people, even if our church only has 50 people. And that's really encouraging, isn't it? Because I think 20 years ago, there was this big push towards the big event. The big churches had amazing music, amazing lights and sound and technology and smoke machines. And we all thought that's where the young people want to go. But I think this is encouraging that everyone can do what you're talking about today, can't they, regardless of their size of church?
Yeah, they can. And I think a lot of smaller churches burnt themselves out trying to replicate it for no actual fruit. And so what you need to think is, what do people actually need? Do they need step-by-step, stepping stone relationships that can navigate them through life? They don't need event as much as they need that way of people walking alongside them. And I think whatever happens in the church in the future, it's going to look quite different to maybe the last 30 to 40 years. There won't be the money among younger people to keep those production line church things going. If you're trying to pay off a mortgage, you haven't got much money left over these days. And young people are going to be less well off than the baby boomers. And so they won't necessarily do church the same way because of financial reasons as much as anything, but also because of philosophical reasons.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, because, again, everyone tried to be super cool in the last 20 or 30 years, church leaders, and churches, and that was all done. And, I mean, there's some great memes on social media. I saw some yesterday about mega churches and this, and there's a bit of truth to those memes. A bit of it is a bit cynical, but, the church went cool, and yeah, they were cool, but some of them were so cool they ended up living like the world and doing horrible things morally. And I think that doesn't impress the world, does it? The world is looking for something authentic and real and genuine, aren't they? More than a big show.
That's the word, authentic. And, the classic funny line, I think is by the Marx Brothers, sincerity, if you can fake that, you've got it made. But people actually want to see, is there more behind it? Is there more behind it than a happy welcome? Like if I'm welcomed at church every week by a happy greeter at the door, but no one ever invites me over for a meal, I'm starting to ask questions. I'm going, is this just the shop front? Is there anything behind it? And so those questions are starting to be asked more and more in a very isolating, sort of atomized culture. And I think once the social fabric in our cultural frame starts to break down, and it is, volunteerism is low, all those things are low, people are going to say, is there somewhere that looks like it's got a deeper social fabric that brings people together for good reasons?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's that word authentic, isn't it? I think the world is crying out for something authentic. Stephen, I could talk to you all day about this. This is so good. I'm really sorry we had that technology hiccup. I am going to blame it on New Zealand. I want you to write a letter to the Prime Minister, please, the new Prime Minister, and say, what is going on here? We couldn't get a good connection. But Stephen McAlpine, always a pleasure to speak with you. If you want to get in touch with Stephen or connect with him more, his website is Stephen McAlpine. That's Stephen with a PH. McAlpine is McAlpine.com, and citybibleforum.org. That's citybibleforum.org. Stephen, as I said, a real joy to speak with you today, and looking forward to 2 weeks' time when you're back with us again. But until then, you enjoy your time and your work in New Zealand.
Great, Andrew. Thanks. Great to speak with you.
Vision.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.